Hey, I can look at myself naked.
Oh, brother.
Scooby-Doo wasn't just a cartoon brought to life. It was Hollywood testing how far they could bend a Saturday morning legend before it snapped. But behind the colorful monsters and the mystery machine, it was chaos hiding in plain sight. The movie began as an R-rated parody the studio buried. A villain twist that still divides fans made it to the screen, and even the cast couldn't escape the drama. Their romance bled into real life. These are 20 weird facts about Scooby-Doo, and buried in the neon wreckage, one legend turned it down, for reasons that still spark debate. This wasn't just family comedy. It was a mystery messier than the monster Unmasked. Number 1. When James Gunn first wrote Scooby-Doo, it wasn't meant to be a squeaky clean family romp. His original script leaned into parody, raunchy jokes, sharper satire, and stoner humor baked straight into Shaggy's lines. The gang wasn't sanitized Saturday morning icons. Velma was openly gay, Daphne and Velma even shared a kiss, and Fred was rewritten as vain and bisexual. Warner Brothers initially went along, hoping the edgy tone would appeal to teens and college kids who had grown up with Scooby. But test screenings shocked the studio. Parents recoiled at the innuendo, the cleavage shots, the swearing, and the drug gags. Executives panicked. Whole subplots were gutted. Velma's sexuality vanished. Fred and Daphne's tension was toned down. Even simple gags, like Scooby dropping weed references, were stripped away. The result was a Frankenstein cut, the body of a parody stitched into the skin of a PG kids movie. Fans still notice the seams. Jokes end abruptly. Tones shift mid-scene, and the movie feels like two versions fighting inside the same mystery machine. One was the R-rated chaos Gunn wrote. The other was the PG adventure Warner Brothers forced. The Scooby-Doo we got was family fun. The one we didn't? Pure madness.
Fred, you're the big banana.
Number 2. Before Raja Gosnell took the reins, Warner Brothers offered Scooby-Doo to Brian Levant, the director behind Beethoven and the Flintstones. Levant was a natural fit, with a track record in family comedies and cartoon-to-live action adaptations. But Levant passed. He felt the project wasn't the right move at the time, leaving the studio scrambling. They turned to Raja Gosnell, who had recently directed Never Been Kissed and Big Mama's House. Gosnell brought a lighter, pop-driven touch, steering the film away from Levant's slapstick-heavy instincts. The result? A version of Scooby-Doo that felt caught between tones, leaning into parody in its DNA, but delivered with glossy family polish. Number 3. If anyone seemed destined to join Scooby-Doo, it was Tim Curry. By 2002, he was already a cult legend, from the Rocky Horror Picture Show to Legend to It, the master of camp, menace, and theatrical flair. Warner Brothers reached out with an offer, hoping his larger-than-life presence would elevate the cartoon chaos. But Curry walked away. He read the script and wanted nothing to do with it. For a film leaning into parody and spectacle, losing him was a serious blow. Fans still wonder what he might have done with a character, a villain, a sorcerer, even a theme park owner, given his ability to make the ridiculous feel iconic. His absence left a hole the movie never quite filled. Curry had the kind of energy that could have matched Matthew Lillard's Shaggy beat for beat. Without him, the film leaned harder on CGI spectacle and campy humor. It's one of those Hollywood what-ifs. With Curry, the film might have been unforgettable for entirely different reasons. Number 4. On screen, Fred and Daphne were the flirtatious duo of Mystery Inc. Their attraction teased for decades in cartoons without ever fully playing out. In Scooby-Doo, that chemistry finally spilled into live action, but it wasn't just acting. Behind the camera, Freddy Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar were already in a relationship. Their banter on set wasn't scripted sparks, but the rhythm of two people who knew each other inside and out. The result gave their scenes a warmth the dialogue itself sometimes lacked. Ironically, critics complained that Fred and Daphne felt flat, missing the nuance of the real connection simmering between the actors. But for fans, the casting became a time capsule of early 2000s pop culture, two of the decade's teen icons playing cartoon sweethearts while falling deeper in love in real life. Months after the movie premiered, they were married. What began as a campy adaptation of a kid's cartoon became a milestone in their love story, one that has lasted for more than 2 decades. Fred and Daphne were scripted. Freddie and Sarah were destiny.
I was gonna solve a mystery all by myself for the first time ever.
How are you gonna save yourself when you get caught?
I'm a black belt now. I've transformed my body into a dangerous weapon.
Number 5. Velma was the brains of Mystery Inc., and Linda Cardellini wasn't about to stumble into the role blindly. Before her audition, she studied tapes of Nicole Jaffe, the original voice of Velma from the 1969 cartoon. Cardellini mimicked her cadence, her clipped delivery, and even the subtle way Velma pushed her glasses up. She didn't stop there. Cardellini showed up to her audition in a turtleneck and skirt, deliberately dressing like Velma to prove she could embody the character from the start. It worked. Producers were were floored, and fans later praised her as the most faithful live-action performance in the film. She didn't just play Velma, she became her.
All you care about are swimsuit models.
No! I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on too.
Number 6. Fred's blonde hair may look natural on screen, but for Freddy Prinze Jr., it was a nightmare. The studio insisted he dye his dark hair to match the cartoon character. The result? A painful chemical process that left his scalp irritated and his patience worn thin. Prinze later admitted he hated the look, calling it like wearing someone else's head. For months of shooting, he felt trapped inside Fred's image, even as he tried to find personality beyond the pretty boy stereotype. It was one of many small battles where the cartoon's legacy clashed with the actors playing it. For Prinze, the dye job was a reminder. Sometimes becoming iconic hurts.
Fred, what's the secret of your success? Teamwork. I do a tremendous amount of teamwork.
Yeah, my plan.
Number 7. Despite his complaints about the hair, Freddy Prinze Jr. wasn't above being a Scooby fan himself. Long before he played Fred, he used to bowl under the name Mystery Machine. It was his private nod to the cartoon he had grown up with. That hidden fandom became public irony once he was cast. The guy who joked about Scooby at the bowling alley was suddenly tasked with carrying Fred onto the big screen. Prinze often said the role was harder than people realized, because Fred wasn't as animated or quirky as Shaggy or Velma. But being part of Scooby's world felt like fate. For Prinze, Fred wasn't just another paycheck. It was his childhood coming back in the strangest way.
Grandma?
What, Velma. It's simple behavior modification. You simply flick it on the nose. Scoop. See?
Oh!
Number 8. Before Wedding Crashers made her a comedy star, Isla Fisher's first big Hollywood role came in Scooby-Doo. She played Mary Jane, the wide-eyed love interest for Shaggy, whose very name was a not-so-subtle wink at the franchise's stoner humor. At the time, Fisher was still relatively unknown outside of Australian soap operas and a handful of small parts. But as Mary Jane, she stood out even alongside Matthew Lillard's scene-stealing Shaggy. Her comic timing, bubbly energy, and ability to lean into the camp made the character memorable, even if her role was partly built around one long-running weed joke. For Fisher, it was a career turning point. Scooby-Doo put her on the radar of casting directors, leading to bigger roles in Hollywood comedies. Within a few years, she was headlining films, carving out a reputation for scene-stealing energy, much like she first showed here. Mary Jane may have been a gag. For Isla Fisher, it was a launch pad.
I'm Mary Jane.
Like that is my favorite name.
Number 9. Bringing Scooby-Doo to life in 2002 meant one thing: computer graphics. But not everyone was happy about it. Early designs of CGI Scooby horrified fans. Too realistic, too uncanny, too far from the goofy Great Dane they loved. Warner Brothers panicked, ordering redesigns until he looked closer to the cartoon. Even then, the dog divided audiences. Some critics called him a PlayStation cutscene come to life. Others thought he was the only thing holding the movie together. The cast admitted it was awkward too, acting opposite a Scooby's head on a stick, which would later be replaced by CGI Scooby, made for some strange performances. What fans saw as a lovable mutt was a visual effect fought over until the last minute.
The only thing I like better than an eggplant burger is a chocolate-covered eggplant burger.
Number 10. Spooky Island looked like a CGI fever dream, but it was very real, twice over. The production filmed exteriors at Tangalooma Resort on Moreton Island, off the coast of Australia. Its beaches, palm trees, and neon resort structures gave the perfect backdrop for a theme park that was part vacation paradise, part nightmare carnival. But when it came to the interiors, the underground lairs, haunted halls, and monster dens, the crew shifted to sound stages in Queensland. Entire caverns and dance clubs were constructed by hand, blending with the island footage so seamlessly that many viewers assumed it was all digital. The result was a hybrid illusion, a real resort, dressed up in cartoon colors, spliced with man-made sets that looked just as surreal. For the cast, it was disorienting, walking out of a real ocean breeze into a fabricated jungle, all in the same shooting day. Spooky Island wasn't just special effects. It was real sand and waves, layered with artifice, a vacation spot turned nightmare playground.
Go home before evil befalls your little skinny aerobicized booty. And whatever you do, do not go into that spooky island castle.
Aha! You want me to go up to that castle?
Number 11. Of all the things fans expected from a Scooby-Doo movie, Pamela Anderson riding shotgun in the Mystery Machine wasn't one of them. Yet that's exactly how the film opens. At the peak of her fame, Anderson appears not as a character, but as herself, suddenly dropped into a Saturday morning cartoon come to life. In the story, she owns a toy factory under attack, and Mystery Inc. swoops in to save the day. The result is a fever dream mashup: Scooby, Shaggy, and Pamela Anderson, all crammed together in the van. Warner Brothers leaned hard on the cameo, plastering it across trailers as if to say, "This isn't your childhood Scooby-Doo." For some fans, it was bizarre. Anderson had no connection to the franchise, yet there she was, striding into cartoon chaos in platform heels. For others, it was the perfect sign of what this movie would be: messy, campy, and just a little too real to be fake.
How could you, Pamela? I am a lover boy of George Clooney in proportions.
Number 12. Matthew Lillard didn't just play Shaggy, he embodied him so perfectly that the role stuck with him for decades. His nervous laughter, slouched posture, and goofy drawl captured the essence of a character audiences had known since 1969. Fans and critics alike agreed that Lillard felt like he had stepped straight out of the cartoon. The impact went far beyond the movie. When Casey Kasem, Shaggy's original voice actor, retired in 2009, Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers tapped Lillard to replace him. What was meant to be a one-time live-action performance became a career-defining responsibility. Since then, Lillard has voiced Shaggy in more than 20 projects, from TV shows to animated films to video games. For a whole new generation, his voice became the definitive sound of Scooby's best friend. He went from parodying a classic to becoming its keeper.
Oh no.
Number 13. In the original script, the glowing essences ripped from people on Spooky Island weren't just energy, they were written as souls. Scrappy's machine was literally sucking the soul out of its victims. But when the movie was test screened, it hit a nerve. Religious audiences pushed back hard, accusing the film of playing with dangerous themes. Director Raja Gosnell remembered the backlash. "We were like, no, it's not meant to go there." Warner Brothers panicked. Overnight, every reference to souls was scrubbed out. The fix? Replace soul with the much safer, much sillier word, protoplasm. That's why in the final cut, the gang isn't fighting for their souls anymore. They're chasing glowing slime blobs. What began as something dark and spiritual was reduced to cartoon goo. Another reminder of how this movie was constantly pulled between parody and family-safe camp.
What are you doing, man? Step off, Scoob! Raggy! We're all ripped! I'm whipped!
Number 14. The Scooby-Doo DVD release pulled back the curtain on how bizarre the production really was. The commentary tracks, featuring James Gunn, Raja Gosnell, and members of the cast, revealed how much had been cut, rewritten, or softened to turn an edgy parody into a PG family film. They joked about alternate takes that were too risque for release, explained the odd tonal swings in the final cut, and even confirmed the infamous R-rated version wasn't just a rumor. According to Gunn, entire subplots, including Velma's more overt sexuality and edgier humor for Shaggy, were trimmed away after nervous studio notes. For fans, the commentaries became a treasure trove. They proved the film that reached theaters was only half the story. A movie stitched together from wild ideas, last-minute changes, and executives terrified of losing the kids' market.
I'll give him a good dose of puppy power! Ta-da!
He's peeing on me.
Number 15. For decades, Scrappy-Doo had been the most divisive figure in Scooby history. Introduced in the late 70s, some kids loved his spunky attitude, but most fans grew to resent him, calling him the character who nearly ruined the franchise. When the live-action film rolled around, James Gunn leaned into that controversy with a shocking twist. Scrappy wasn't just in the movie, he was the villain. In the film's climax, the adorable puppy reveals himself as a bitter outcast with a grudge, plotting to drain souls and rule Spooky Island. It was meant as a parody, a wink to longtime viewers who joked about their hatred for him. But the reveal split audiences wide open. Some cheered at the satire. Others felt betrayed that a core Scooby character, no matter how unpopular, had been turned into a power-mad monster. Even the cast admitted later they weren't sure it worked. What was meant as a clever jab became the most debated creative choice in the entire movie. Scrappy didn't just divide Mystery Inc., he divided the audience forever.
Scrappy-Doo.
Correction, the new improved Scrappy, because I Scrappy-Dappy-Doo.
Number 16. By 2002, Scooby-Doo had already been around for more than 3 decades. There had been cartoons, spin-offs, TV movies, even stage shows, but never a live-action feature. Bringing the Mystery Inc. gang into the real world felt like both a risk and an inevitability. The movie marked the first time Scooby himself appeared as a fully CGI character alongside human actors. For Warner Brothers, it was a milestone, blending nostalgia for parents who grew up on the cartoon with glossy spectacle for their kids. Whatever critics thought of the tone, the leap to live action meant Scooby was suddenly bigger than Saturday mornings. He was on billboards, fast food tie-ins, and multiplex screens across the world. For a franchise built on chasing mysteries, this was its boldest adventure yet. Number 17. Critics may have slammed it, but audiences showed up in droves. Made on a budget of about $84 million, Scooby-Doo scared up over $275 million worldwide. It didn't just turn a profit, it became one of Warner Brothers' biggest hits of the year. The numbers shocked skeptics who had written it off as camp. The movie outperformed expectations, proving that Scooby still had global appeal after 30 years. It also cemented the viability of live-action cartoon adaptations, paving the way for more experiments in the 2000s. For the studio, the box office success was the real mystery solved. Audiences didn't care about critics or tonal confusion. They just wanted to see the gang back in action, even if it came with a CGI dog and a few odd jokes.
If anyone messes with me, I'll just open a can of 2,000-year-old Chinese whoop-ass on it.
Number 18. When Scooby-Doo hit theaters in 2002, critics tore it apart. Reviews called it loud, messy, and confused. Too adult for kids, too juvenile for adults. The CGI dog was mocked, the jokes were panned, and most thought it would be forgotten as soon as it left theaters. But audiences had other plans. Kids embraced the campy chaos, memorized the one-liners, and grew up with Matthew Lillard's Shaggy as their definitive version. On DVD and cable reruns, the movie found a second life. By the 2010s, those same kids were teens and young adults, and they began celebrating the movie online, not as a failure, but as a cult classic. Memes spread of Velma's hot girl makeover, Shaggy's absurd slang, and Scrappy's villain reveal. Clips resurfaced on YouTube and TikTok, transforming scenes once ridiculed into nostalgic comedy gold. The movie critics dismissed became a comfort watch. Its flaws became its charm, and what began in the shadows of ridicule grew into a cult following that refuses to fade.
I'm not helpless. I'm not helpless. I am helpless. I'm gonna die! Oh!
Number 19. When James Gunn was hired to write Scooby-Doo, he wasn't the blockbuster filmmaker we know today. He was a scrappy writer from Trauma Entertainment, a studio infamous for cheap, edgy, and outrageous films. Suddenly, he was inside a major Hollywood system, juggling studio notes, executive meddling, and the pressure of adapting one of the most beloved cartoons of all time. The experience frustrated him. His original script, raunchy, satirical, and R-rated, was gutted until it barely resembled his vision. Entire subplots vanished, characters were sanitized, and jokes he thought were hilarious were deemed too risky. For Gunn, it was a crash course in how little control writers sometimes had in studio filmmaking, but it also sharpened him. Gunn later admitted those battles taught him how to balance his unique voice with mainstream demands, a skill that became crucial when Marvel handed him Guardians of the Galaxy and DC tapped him for The Suicide Squad. The film that left fans puzzled left Gunn prepared. Scooby-Doo wasn't just his strangest job, it was the training ground that turned him into one of Hollywood's biggest comic book storytellers. Number 20. After the first film's box office success, Warner Brothers rushed out Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed in 2004. The sequel made money, but reviews were brutal and momentum fizzled. A third movie was announced but quickly canceled as the studio lost faith. Instead, the franchise was rebooted in made-for-TV prequels and animated features. The live-action cast, Prince, Geller, Cardellini, and Lillard, never reunited for another big-screen adventure. For fans, it felt like an unfinished trilogy. The gang had solved 2 mysteries, but the third chapter never came. All that remains are rumors of what Scooby 3 might have been. Like so many masked villains in the franchise, it disappeared before it could be unmasked.
Yo, the biatch was like, what? And I was like, later on.
Bonus fact. Among the biggest casualties of the original R-rated cut was a moment fans still whisper about, Velma and Daphne's kiss. James Gunn confirmed in interviews that the scene was shot during the Spooky Island body swap sequence. It wasn't played as romance, more like a cheeky gag when the two characters realized how strange it felt to swap bodies and instincts. But Warner Bros. Executives panicked. Afraid of losing the family audience, they cut it completely, leaving only rumors and fan theories. For years, the lost kiss lingered as a Scooby-Doo urban legend, and while it never made the final cut, the fact that it was filmed at all proved how close the movie came to being something far wilder than the PG comedy that hit theaters. It was the kiss nobody saw, but everyone remembers. Scooby-Doo was never supposed to be simple. It was messy, chaotic, and caught between parody and nostalgia. Critics wrote it off, but audiences embraced it anyway, first as a guilty pleasure, then as a cult favorite. It gave Matthew Lillard the role of his life, launched Isla Fisher's career, tested Freddy Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar's chemistry, and even became a strange stepping stone for James Gunn. 2 decades later, fans still quote it, meme it, and defend it as the campy, colorful chaos that defined a generation. The studio buried its R-rated edges, but the fingerprints are still there, making it one of the strangest and most fascinating adaptations ever made. If you still laugh at Scooby's CGI, quote Shaggy's zoinks, or secretly root for Scrappy's over-the-top villainy, drop a comment. Tell us what wild classic we should unmask next, because some mysteries don't get solved, they just live on.